into detail when I introduce her in the next session when she's going to speak about resources, because I think you will be amazed at how many organizations she's part of and how much she's helping out. Let's welcome our panel moderator, Bobbie Reed.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm really excited today about today's panel discussion on home dialysis. It actually is the mode of dialysis that my son and I, or that he chose. And it worked out really well for him for various reasons. Today, we bring to you a terrific panel of people here to discuss home dialysis. It's the diversity within our panel that plays a really big role. And I think that there's sources of information there for everybody to key into. Shobha, did you want to introduce our panel and then we can move on from there?
You can go ahead and introduce to her. Do you want
okay. All right,
yeah,
great. Michael and Christina Gilchrist, great team. They're important in that Christina is the one with kidney disease, having had complications from a pregnancy resulting in blindness, 2 failed kidney transplants. She did in-center dialysis as well as 3+ years of home dialysis. So I think that she really brings a lot to the table. Michael, as her care partner, is just amazing in the depth of things that he does for her, but also for people within the kidney space. I'm really hoping that during our discussion today, he can share some of the things that he does as a caregiver. And it's my firm belief too, that caregiving, it takes 2 to deal with this. You can't navigate this alone. The way I looked at it from the very beginning was that my son was the one, his job was to be sick, and my job was to make sure that we made it through in the most healthy way possible. The next panelist that we have with us is April Mcgraw. And April, she brings to us the aspect of being a seasoned nephrology nurse. And she's a certified nurse practitioner. And she also has personal experience with battling kidney disease. So through all of those sources, she is going to bring a lot to the table here for about in-center dialysis and about different techniques or different things about dialysis. And she's committed really to educating patients. And I think that her foundation for that, by being a nephrology nurse and a nurse practitioner, can speak very well to that. And the last person on our panel today is LJ. Rather than pronouncing her name Laura, but we're going to call her LJ today. She brings to the panel a really unique perspective in that she's a veteran of the military. And veterans and military service personnel have their own little realm and world of dealing with things. And there's a lot of resources that probably a lot of veterans out there aren't aware of, where to go, what's out there for them, where transplants are done, things like that. But I think that she's going to shine a really big light on what we're talking about here today. So the first thing that I would like to do in our discussion, thank you, by the way, all of our panelists here. I would like you to just give a brief description and talk about the type of home dialysis you do and how you arrived at that decision and what you suggest other kidney patients look for in choosing a mode of dialysis. Now, let's pick the first person to go. Would we say, how about April? Why don't you talk about your experience with home dialysis and how you arrived at that decision and some hints or help that people can gain from what you have to say.
Sure. Thank you, Bobbie. So I am currently a home hemodialysis patient. I've been doing home hemo since 2008. Then I had a little break in there and did peritoneal for 2 years because I lost my last dialysis access. My access was in my left thigh, and so I didn't have another. I could have went to my right thigh, but I was trying to hold out for that 3rd transplant, and I needed that vein. But so I just resumed. 2002, I returned back to home hemo after the stint with PD. So, and like I said, I've been doing that since 2008, and I started PD at the age of 15, and I did that during my high school years. But what led me to it is that even though I'm a nephrology nurse, I've been a nephrology nurse since 2002, and I knew the benefits of it. But I was adamant that I did not want to bring the dialysis into my home. And so every time someone would come to speak to me while I was in center, it was just an absolute no for me. And what changed that is that I ended up becoming a manager for the company that I was dialyzing with. And so then I needed the flexible scheduling. And so I was kind of led into home hemo at that point. I had tried PD when I was younger, so I didn't have a really good experience with that. So it wasn't my first option to return to. And so for me, it was career needs. It was the lifestyle. I'm a grandmother of 4 right now. And I just wanted to be able to manage my own schedule. It's very difficult to go to school and get all these degrees and then do the clinicals and everything that's involved and work if you are tied to a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday dialysis schedule that may or may not fit you in the first place. So I'll say when looking for, when trying to decide what type of modality, you really have to look into your, think about your lifestyle and also think about the level of commitment that you are willing to put in it, because being a dialysis patient and taking care of your needs at home, either in HHD or PD, it requires a level of commitment because you are responsible for it. You and your care partner are responsible for this. It's not, oh, okay, well, I just blow it off. That's you are mostly responsible for your lifeline.
I see. When you went through this practice or your introduction to doing dialysis, did you have any education from it or any help from your dialysis center or a nurse educator or anything like that you can share with us?
Yeah, so as I said, I started very young at 15. And so at that point I was at a children's hospital. So I feel like I got a pretty good introduction, and me and my mom got a pretty good introduction and education to it in the beginning. I think where it falls off is once you leave the children's hospital and now you go into the adult centers, which I did my senior year of high school. I think that's where it kind of gets lost in, because it's just assumed that you're there. But the dynamics are different when you go from being a teenager or a child on dialysis, and then now you're in the adult world of dialysis. And partly because of my background, I feel like that providers don't tend to put a lot of time to educate me because they assume I know everything. And so I have to sometimes constantly say, just talk to me like a layperson, talk to me like I don't know anything, and I'll let you know if that's something that I already know or not.
That is so true. And I've heard so often from people say that pediatric nephrology and kidney disease is far different than adult. And I really appreciate you and thank you for bringing that to fruition here, to bringing it up front. And that just gives other people in the audience here a chance to know that, you have to be aware of this and know to say, hey, look, talk to me in normal language. We're going through a lot of changes here. Excellent. Thank you so much, April. LJ, can you elaborate for us on the type of dialysis that you do and how you arrived at that decision and what you suggest other kidney patients look for in choosing a mode of dialysis?
Yes, so my kidney disease is a little bit interesting in that it's a genetic disorder. I am not eligible for any transplants. Unless the mechanical stuff really works out, I will never be eligible because replacing either my kidneys won't do anything. They both failed, and it's in like my tubing and everything. It would just reject it immediately. And I have a lot of other comorbidities. So coming into end-stage renal failure, when I finally hit the point when it was time to do dialysis, I had already had 8.5 years of doing infusions. I have a slimline port in my chest. I already was getting infusions I get potassium infusions weekly, 2 to 3 times a week, as well as iron and other things. So I kind of had an idea of what was going to happen, you know, with the surgeries and stuff. But when I sat down with the nurses, the difference was I'm on a military installation. I do not have a long-standing medical team. We move every 2 years, which I've done since, you know, the last 12 years. So I was coming into kind of new doctors. We were new on location here, only a couple months. I had talked about it previously at our other location, but the thing that came out immediately is because of my other comorbidities. I have a wasting disorder of my kidneys. Hemodialysis was actually something they wanted to stay away from for as long as possible because it actually takes blood out of your body. When you already have anemia that's chronically low and getting blood transfusions, my potassium without, listen to this, without my medication is under 2. With my medication is 2.4 to 2.6.
Oh,
So filtering out of my body is a bad option. So PD was kind of like it. As long as we can keep you on PD, the better off it's going to be for me, right? So I really wasn't given much of an option. I could have chose to push for hemo, but hearing that, I was like, yeah, let's just do PD and make sure it works. We found out immediately because of my size and the wasting disorder, my veins, like in my arms, I couldn't get lines in there, so it's in my stomach. And it was a big learning curve because my husband's in and out a lot with the military. I'm at home, we're not near any family. So I spent a lot of time, honestly, researching myself and reaching out to other people. Like, this is gonna sound ridiculous. Facebook, like the Gilchrists, watching them on Facebook gave me a lot of hope that like I could do things I still wanted and put me in a mindset, which I learned doing infusions from a young age. I'm only 30, is that you have to seek the sunshine. So going through this whole process, that's been important for me, is finding the sunshine every day. If I can hook up to the machine with a smile on my face, I know it's going to hurt. Okay, you can get through it. You're still alive. The alternative for me is not an option. So that was my decision-making process, and
that's great.
I'm still learning. That's every day.
Do you find too that being in the military that there's a separate support system for you in dealing with your dialysis and dealing with your kidney disease?
So I have to say the military as a whole, I'm a military spouse and I'm a veteran, is very supportive. I have to tell you, the military knows nothing about dialysis. It go like I am literally explaining it to my doctors on the base. So I see a kidney specialist. I do everything off base. So that's really frustrating. But we do get a case manager when we get to bases if you are something called EFMP, exceptional family member. So I qualify. I have a chronic disease, someone going through cancer, a kid with autism, things like that. So I do get a case manager. So like if I am just like having a day where like I can't get in touch with doctors, they will help. But that's basically the extent. But the military community has a unique connection. And for somebody that obviously is homebound a lot, it is very helpful because my friends are kind of all around the world. So we're used to talking via Zoom and things. So that can be very helpful. That is unique.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure that you've helped a lot of people on this call with sharing that little bit of information about the military connection to kidney disease. Next on our list is Michael Gilchrist and Christina. I would like you first, if you could, talk about the type of home dialysis that you do and how you arrived at that decision and what you suggest that other kidney patients look for in making the decision and choosing the form of dialysis that they do. Take it away.
Yeah, of course.
Christina.
First and foremost, I just have to say, you two women are just amazing. You're so strong, and just thank you for being here, and Bobbie as well, always. But when I started dialysis, I got lucky and I did a month and a half in center, and then I got a kidney transplant. And I did end up rejecting that kidney transplant. And then I went in center. at that time I had heard about PD. So I asked my doctor if that was something I could do. And he straight up said, no, you can't do it. And so I was 24.
Why don't you tell him why?
Well, because I'm blind and I'm legally blind. I'm not completely blind. I just have no central vision. And so he said, no, you can't do it. And so I went in center. I did 5.5 years in center. And then I got my second kidney transplant. I ended up rejecting that. And I had learned at that point in center, I was a single mom, and it was such a struggle for me where I can't drive. And so for me, I'm walking my daughter to school, I'm walking her home, I'm doing dialysis, I'm walking to the grocery store. It was such a struggle for me just every single day. And so I did my research when I knew I was rejecting again, and I wanted to do PD because I felt like that was something I could do on my own. And at that time, that was really important to me. So I trained with my doctor, and we came up with tricks that worked for me. And I did PD for 3 years. I did it 100% on my own. I was kind of adamant because at the time, he was my boyfriend, and I didn't want him to have to help. Well, after those 3 years, I was diagnosed with abdominal adhesion, which meant I was no longer a PD candidate. So then it was jump on board, get me on hemo because I want to get out of center. And so we started training for hemo. We went home, and initially we did 4 days a week for 3.5 hours. I did that for about 1.5 years. And then I switched to nocturnal because I loved on PD that I had my days free. So I currently do 4 days a week, 7.5 hours each treatment, and I sleep right through it.
And my biggest thing too is on the care partner side of it, her biggest fear was to not put me through this. And I had to sit her down and I had to explain to her, listen, you already are putting me through this. Okay, I'm the one carrying you in from dialysis. I'm the one holding you, I'm holding your hair while you're puking. I'm the one watching you recuperate in bed until you have to go back and just do it again. So if there's something I can do to help you be healthier and to hopefully help me get my life back to normalish, then I'm all on board. And that last veteran, you're amazing. I work for the United States Air Force. I actually work on jets, so you're amazing.
I also just want to add, I like to tell people, don't be afraid of any of the modalities because your health is going to change over time. And sometimes you're going to have to switch modalities. And so you're going to have to do some training. I always like to tell people when you go home on PD, start researching hemo and just educate yourself to where if it does change and you need another modality, you can handle that.
And did you have, that's very good. Thank you very much for those comments. Did you have a nurse educator or anybody teach you about this? Or is this something that you had to pick up the rope or whatever and go at it yourself?
I totally did this on my own. When I did want to do PD, I had to go to 5 different doctors and they all told me no, I couldn't do it. And then I went to my pediatric nephrologist and I just begged him. And so I was a straight up no for everyone. And so I had to go out of my way to prove to other people that I was capable of this.
And even when she was being considered for home hemo, she has a CVC because her fistula gave out, her graft wasn't usable. So she has a CVC and they immediately told her no. And she's the sweet one. I'm the bald one covered with tattoos. And I actually went to the doctors on my own and was like, why can't we do this? And the second they realized it was Christina, it was, okay, let me reconsider this. But if my mom gave me any advice growing up, she had a handicapped daughter, and it was always ask your question 3 times. Because the first initial answer is going to be, we're going to err on caution, no, you can't do this. The second time, they're going to give it a little more thought, but it's still going to be, no, we don't want to deal with this. And then the third time, it is, okay, how can we actually do this? Yep. We actually have a saying, don't tell me I can't, show me how I can. Because this girl, she's stubborn, and she's going to do whatever she wants. So if she wants to go swimming, if she wants to go hot tubbing, if she wants to go in water, I want them to show us how we can do that effectively.
And since I have had 2 kidney transplants and rejected both, I am on the top of the list right now, but I have 100% antibodies. So the option of having a dialysis that can make me the mom I want to be, the wife I want to be, now the grandma I want to be, is everything.
That's the other thing too, is she's not the only one that crashed into dialysis. I did it right there with her. And during this time, I was at the peak of my career. I was at a point where I could have started advancing, and I had to put all of that on hold to help her with her kidney disease and dialysis. And the good thing is that after you're doing home dialysis and you take your care into your own hands and you advocate for yourself, it is amazing how dialysis isn't the complicated thing in our life anymore. It's the everyday stuff. And, you know, we're the young, typical married couple where we argue and stuff like that. And there'll be times when she's feeling down. She's like, I'm tired of putting you through this dialysis. And I have to sit her down. I'm like, hey, dialysis is the easy part. All this other stuff is the difficult stuff. I can handle hooking you up and going to sleep. Is it a lot? Yes. But it's doable.
It becomes routine.
Michael, what you and Christine said are so true. The part about saying you have to ask 3 times, that's one of the founding principles in selling somebody on something. Sure, they're going to say no the first time, and they'll probably say no the second time, but you have to go at them 3 times before you finally accept the fact that they're not going to do what you want to do. So I think that you hit the nail right on the head with that one.
I'm that sucker. You asked me 3 times and I'm just going to do it.
That's true.
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. And I think too, that being a caregiver is something that is often overlooked and underrated in every aspect of dealing with kidney disease. At least I found that through my experiences. So I commend you for standing up and being the caregiver that you are, because I think that it's creating a better outcome and a more positive impact on Christina.
And I think that our care partners are so, like, they really need to be treated better in the dialysis world, because if a patient goes home and that care partner gets them on home dialysis and they start feeling better, you know, they're going to be able to take over some of the tasks that they have to do for dialysis, and it's just going to get easier on both of them.
See, and I will say too that it is a lot at the beginning. It is life-changing. It is everything put on hold. But I like to tell people that you can go back to a modified normal. Will we ever be normal on dialysis? Absolutely not. You know, I go home, 4 times a week, and I hook my wife up to a machine where she could die every single time. That is just how it is. But it is also giving her the life that we want, where we can travel. We're going to Boston next week. We're going to Puerto Rico the week after that. And we are living. We're living a better life now than I think we were when we first met, and when she wasn't rejecting her kidney. So.
Thank you. Great. I want to move on. I would really like it if each one of you could maybe describe the benefits and the barriers and the outcomes with your home dialysis experience that you believe that would enlighten those listening today. For example, perhaps tell us about a typical day in the life of being a home dialysis patient. April, can you start us off here with that?
It varies. It typically varies now, just because of my schedule. So my practice is a private practice, so it's all telehealth, virtually. So the goal is to get up in the morning and do the treatment. But I really practice nocturnal, like Mike and Christina do, just by self. That's just what I do, because honestly, for me, you know, I've been doing this for over 30 years, you know, so it's, for me, honestly, it's like the last thing that I want to do that day. And so I find myself literally pushing the go button on my iPad at like 11:58, 11:59. So I'm technically nocturnal, but I'm here all day and I really could have it knocked out. But also that is one of the beauties of it, because you can do it around your schedule. If you don't feel like doing it at 3 o'clock, you don't do it at 3 o'clock. You do it later. If you feel like you have a night and you can't sleep and you want to get up in the morning and just go ahead and knock it out, you get up in the morning and go ahead and knock it out. Now, when I was getting up and going to work every day, a lot of days I would do my treatment and then go to work because I didn't have that downtime that we have normally in center. I was able to get off the machine, disconnect myself, get myself together for work and go on to work, and literally almost forget that I've had treated that day because I didn't have the after effects. But a typical day, picking up grandbabies from school, daycare, doing chores around the house, taking care of things I have to do for my business, but it's not around my dialysis schedule. I do my dialysis schedule around it.
See, thank you so much, April. That was very enlightening. LJ, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like perhaps tell us about a typical day in your life as a home dialysis patient and describe what some benefits are and barriers and outcomes that you faced in doing with your home dialysis experience.
Yeah, before I forget, because listening to Michael talk, it just reminded me, one of the things is like my husband cannot be there to be the caregiver physically, and my family's across the country, but there's great resources for everyone, not even the military, like that I sent to my family around the world, because my husband's family's military and everything. Right with like dialysis, DaVita, they have like videos and little like quizzes so people can actually learn about PD and what you're going through, because I think that's always a question for family members that maybe aren't your caregiver. Just for it, sorry, that popped into my head and I didn't want it to go away. But my typical day is a little different. I got out of the military. Obviously I was with another military person and moving, so I was already seeking out a virtual job. So I've worked remotely for many years, but when I kind of crashed into actually starting dialysis, I actually took a step back and went to part-time, because I was already having a hard time balancing my infusion schedule, because I have to do that during the day. I cannot do that at night. So I do my PD at night, which makes it completely easy. But one thing I find is I actually like half set it up in the morning. Like I don't hook anything up, turn anything on. I just make sure I have the appropriate, pads out and the bags and everything, so that at the end of the day, when I'm absolutely wiped out, I can just kind of do it. But something different that I'm still struggling with, I have to be honest, is half of my bags have to be refrigerated, which is different than most people. And that's because my bags actually half of them have EIP in it, which you can think of as, if you've heard of TPN, my diet is actually mixed with added proteins and stuff because of a wasting disorder. And I cannot lose any more weight. There is nothing left on me to lose, because it's slowly been my whole life. I've lost, very slowly, but at this point, there's not anything else to lose. So I do have to wait until the last minute to pull that out, because of the way it works. But PD doing it at night, I have 4 days a week, 8 hours. And then I also have infusions that I have to do during the day, 3 of them, which are 4 hours. I try to kind of do them on opposite days, but I never do anything on Saturdays. I try to leave that as my one day where medical is not staring me in the face. That doesn't mean I'm not taking all the medications I have to take 3 times a day. But that's important to me, is having that one day where my brain is not like, oh, I get to stab myself today. Oh, things like that. And I think that's important for my mental health. Because me and my husband like to hike and thing. An important thing to me is I ran for Team USA. I was an NCAA championship. I can no longer run. I have no more muscle. But me and my husband love to hike and do trail walks. And PD has allowed me to do that. Because if we want to go to a national park for like 3 nights, I can bring a manual bag, right? And I can do it that way. We haven't tried something longer. I'm working up to it. PD also has allowed me to continue to work. Now I work full-time again for the Army remotely, because I can be at home, and when I feel tired, I can sit down, take a quick nap, and get back to work. And then take care of myself at night. It also allows me to take care of myself when my husband's away, which I'm not sure that chemo would allow the same way, because I know it's a little bit different. And PD does allow me to take care of myself, which I think is important for me right now and where I am in my life. That'll change down the road, when he retires from the military, but right now it is important for me.
That's a terrific response to that. I believe too, it goes towards caregivers as well, being able to put yourself first and allow time for you. And I think that, that subconsciously or mentally, that does have an impact on your physical well-being. Having your mindset in the right place can aid you in progressing along and have more positive outcomes to that. Michael and Christina, can you describe some of the benefits and barriers and outcomes with your home dialysis that you believe that would enlighten those listening today? And perhaps tell us about a typical day in your lives. And it sounds like your typical day is going to be far different from everybody else's typical day, but we want to know, so the people can apply that to their own lifestyle.
Yeah, so my perspective on dialysis is, when I was in center, I felt like a zombie, and my medical just got worse and worse and worse. When I went to PD, I felt like so much better. It made everything in my world seem brighter. Even my vision seemed to have a little bit more gloss to it. And so I did PD for 3 years. Well, after those 3 years, when I switched to hemo, I was amazed, because I didn't think I could feel any better than PD, but I felt even better. And switching to nocturnal made me feel even better. And I'm at the point now where my health has, since I've been home on dialysis, I'm at about 6 years, and my health is improving. After 5.5 years in center, I was just getting worse and worse. I had open heart surgery last November 30th. And I am telling you guys, like, I was negotiating with them on doing my IVs at home. I wanted to leave because I felt so darn good after open heart surgery. And that's something that it's so foreign to me. And my health is improving, and I'm even considering going back to work full time.
And it's weird because she is so healthy. I mean, have you ever had to have a conversation and argue with a dialysis patient to not go to the gym? So I'm stuck going with her all the time. And LJ, we have some amazing mountains in Utah. You are welcome here at all times. So please come. And
we just did a whole bunch of Utah.
Did you? You should have looked us up. We would have had coffee and hung out.
Oh, we'll come out anytime. We're right in Las Vegas.
Okay. And another thing that we do is we had to find an activity that Christina could do at all times. And we picked movies because, and I have a saying that no matter how sick you are, you can always do a movie. And it's not only, it was a weekly date for us, but it was also,
for our kids.
it was also a place for me to go. I didn't have doctors calling me. I didn't have to deal with dialysis. I didn't have to deal with work. It was my off time. And so we still do movies every week to this day.
Yeah, we just do it with all our friends now. And I think that one of the things, it's really big to find something that takes the medical out of your brain for a little while. And whether that's, for me, I love working out. Something about feeling strong makes me just so happy. And so I go and work out, and I'm not a dialysis patient while I'm working out. I'm just me. And so find things that will ease your mind a little. But I think the average day for us could vary, because there's sometimes we wake up and it's like, hey, why don't we grab the machine and run to another state and stay overnight? And so I think our average day is me being a grandma here with my daughter, and him working
Yeah.
and then doing dialysis.
And that's the thing too, is it is a lot and it's stressful, but it, like I said, it becomes a modified normal. And as long as you can work that in, you can usually make anything work.
And for me, the stress is totally worth it because I feel so much better. And I did very poorly in center. And so now I'm at 6 years home. And I don't know if I would be here today if I hadn't found home. And I'm not only here today, but I'm thriving.
You certainly do look like you're thriving. Both of you do. It's so exciting. It's really uplifting, to hear your experiences and what you've been going through. I'd like to talk now about if you had to pick out one thing, the most important impacting point in your experience with the home dialysis that other kidney patients might want to take with them, like as a foundation, a beginning in their journey with kidney disease and dialysis, what would that one impacting point be? April, could you tell us what your impacting point would be?
Oof. I don't know if I had to say one thing is just learn everything that you can learn about your disease process. The more that you learn and know about what's going on with you, the better that you can take care of yourself. The better that you can live your life how you want to, as close as normally as you want to.
Mhm.
If I had to take one thing, it would just be get the education.
Okay, that's a good point to bring up. That would create a strong foundation and something for you to build on. I totally agree with you. Very good point made. LJ, could you tell us what your most impacting point would be in your experience with home dialysis and other kidney patients might want to take with them?
I think this is important for anybody that's got a lifelong illness or chronic things, because I learned it obviously early on with the infusions, is don't shut down. Whatever that means for you, don't shut down. If that means finding a counselor, oh my God, I'm military. Mental health counselors, I was special forces. I was hoo-ha, only female, male. Talking to a counselor was like, what? You don't do that. But you've got to talk to somebody about your fears, what you're going through, the information. It's a lot. You want to find out as much information as possible, but it's a lot. You got to adjust your finances around your house, how you're eating, your daily schedule. You'll find yourself, I'm an adult. I'm 30. I take a nap every day. That's kind of weird.
Mhm.
But you know what? I need it.
Right.
So don't shut down. I don't care if you go onto a Facebook forum and start talking to other kidney people. I don't care if you call your mom across the country. Just don't shut down. I think it's important because the reason you're choosing dialysis is you want to be here. You want to be alive, right?
Mhm.
So don't shut down. That's
Great.
probably the biggest takeaway for me, because everything from there you can figure out.
Great. Thank you. So I hope everybody wrote that point down too. We're getting 3 really good tips to build our foundations here. Michael and Christina, what would your point be, the most impacting point in your experience with home dialysis that other kidney patients might want to use as a foundation?
Can we each give our own?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Okay, so mine is when I went in for open heart surgery in November, the doctor was going to make a tiny, like 2-inch incision, swap out my valve. And when he went in there, he found out that my entire heart, that my pericardium that sits around your heart, had calcified. And the reason for this is because I pushed dialysis off too long. I felt fine because I was in my early 20s. My doctor's telling me your creatinine is 15. We need to start. And I'm thinking, no, I'm okay. I pushed too hard. One thing I think people need to understand is, yes, listen to your body, but at the same time, listen to your team. Listen to the professionals around you. If you need to start dialysis, go ahead and start it. And I understand that that's a hard choice to make, but don't put it off because it will cause longer damage.
And my biggest thing was when I entered this, I had absolutely no idea. I have no medical background at all. And it was starting a support group and joining a support group. And people like Bobbie, you know, just inspired me and helped me throughout this entire thing. And I don't care what support group you join. I like mine because I try to keep it fun. I try to keep it, you know, everybody laughing. We have enough to cry about with this dialysis stuff. I like to try to put a good aspect on it, but find a support group. If you think you're alone, you're not. There's hundreds of people that are going through the same thing.
And kidney failure is a really solo journey. And so you do feel like you're alone. And so when you join these support groups, you're going to find people that are living their lives. They're the same age range as you. They're loving the same things in life. And reach out. Don't do this alone.
That is so true, what you just said. I think that having a support group, and Michael, I'm familiar with yours, and I would hope that maybe you could share that in the comments here, the chat session here, about where your support group is, because I know that part of that is that you have like a ongoing conversation where patients can type in a question or ask for feedback and learn from other patients. Not only learn, but I think that that does give you a foundation to take it to the next level, where Christina, you just talked about learning, you know, and paying attention to and listening to your team. You could take those questions that are coming up and the answers, the potential answers that people gave you from that, and connect the dots and go to your team to get the actual truth of the matter. You know, perhaps, you know, not everything you read on online or in Facebook is absolutely verbatim true, but it definitely might be a really good conversation starting point to develop that relationship with your team. So I love that point that you just made. I want to change the tone here just a little bit. I came up with some different types of questions that I thought that maybe you could chime in on and give some insight to. I'm going to pose the first one here. With home dialysis, describe the training and follow-ups that you have with your team or your dialysis support system, and what resources do you find there? Like, what can patients look for? What can they maybe expect to find through, you know, the follow-ups? It's not like you're doing dialysis all on your own and you just keep going on a day in and day night and never talk to anybody except maybe every 6 or 7 months or something. There is probably a routine that you have to follow and engage with your team. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Michael and Christina, why don't you go first, and then we'll reverse the order this time. Go ahead.
Okay. My biggest thing, like I said, join a support group, because I will honestly say, since we started this process, there has been leaps and bounds on the information that you're getting for home dialysis and kidney patients. When I first started this, that's the reason I started my group, was I was tired of getting my medical answers after something happened. And that is where, don't ever take medical advice from a support group, but you can get some ammo to take to your team, and you can fire some stuff at them and say, hey, we've tried this, and don't be embarrassed to say things that are frustrating you. Okay, one of the biggest things with kidney disease is you're going to have sexual frustrations. Nobody talks about it, but everybody experiences it. And I'll be honest, we did. And until we talked to our team and said, hey, what can we adjust? What can we do this? It was an easy, oh, let's put you on this. You know,
I also think with PD, for me, my training was very thorough because I did it one-on-one with my doctor. And so when I went home on PD, I felt solid. When we went home on hemo, we had the most amazing nurse. Eva, I love you. She walked us through every single step. And truly, she was one of those nurses, you could message her at 2 in the morning and she would call you right back. And we now have gotten so good at this dialysis that legally in the state of Utah, I only have to go in my dialysis center once every 3 months. I do video calls every month, but literally I see my doctor almost,
what, every 90 days?
Yeah, now we chat because we miss each other. And I'm like, what are you up to? How is it? Now it is more of a friendship than it was before.
That's great. Thank you so much. And April, can you chime in here and describe what support system that the dialysis center provides and what resources a patient can expect to find there?
Yeah, so of course you have your in-center social worker that you can start with. But to be honest, most of the social workers in the dialysis centers are not utilized in a way to be real support. They're utilized in a way to help psychosocial issues, making travel arrangements, things like that. So you really have to advocate for yourself to be able to get some resources outside of that if needed. Some facilities have support groups and some don't. It's really up to a patient or even a social worker or someone that's vested in it to start a support group in your area. There are very few that are attached to a specific clinic. I also have a Facebook group. It's called Women Thriving with Kidney Disease. And I chose to support women with kidney disease because I'm a woman, and I feel like there are some things that we like to talk about that we don't necessarily like to talk about in front of other men. And so, we talk about, the sexual dysfunctions, the hormone issues, and all those things as well. But we get to do it just with a group of women. And so we've been very happy with that.
That's great. That's really positive feedback for people to hear.
I kind of want to jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
This is one of the main reasons right here.
This is my granddaughter, Eleanor. And I am telling you guys, when I was 22 and I was going into kidney failure and they said the average lifespan is 6 to 7 years, this little girl was never in my future. Being a grandma was not in my future. Home dialysis allowed me to be a grandma. And is she not perfect?
Great, she's so cute. I love that baby. The next, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and a lot of people probably are wondering about this because they hear, I guess, horror stories saying, oh, I can't do home dialysis because of all this stuff we have to get, and I don't have the space for it, and this, that, or the other. I was wondering if you could comment on, how you go about getting your supplies, how often they come, what you do with them, and how you manage that particular situation. And is there somebody out there that helps you with that, or is it something here again that you're actually all on your own with? Michael, can you start off with that for us and let us know?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, so we are very fortunate that our girls grew up and moved out. So we have an extra room upstairs and we have plenty of room for storage. So we actually started getting our shipments every 2 months. And so we just keep it up there and we don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
How do you order it? Because you're the one who orders.
It is overwhelming, but they're all different options. You can get every other week deliveries. You can get monthly deliveries. We have the room, so we've decided to have every 2 months. And it's a lot, but like I said, it becomes your modified normal. There's certain tricks that I do that, like, I know I'm gonna have an order soon. I'll actually take a picture of my supplies, and when I'm at work and I get that email, I can look at the picture. Okay, I have this. I need to order this. There's shortcuts, there's tricks. Like if I'm running late at work, I can call her and say, hey, start a cassette. There's shortcuts that you can do where during the day, set your machine up, get it heated, get it warming, get it doing all that stuff. That way, when you do have to connect, that part is not the overwhelming part. All you have to do is connect.
I also think as patients, we have a bit of a responsibility of our own to not run our caregivers into the ground. And so if I can set up a cassette and make maybe that just 5 minutes easier for him, then that's what I'm going to do. So I think as a patient, be aware of those things, and they're really bending backwards to take care of us. Let's return the favor.
That's great. I wanted to interject here real quick too. LJ, I believe, had a previous commitment. She had to leave our group a little bit early. So I apologize for not acknowledging that before. April, can you elaborate a little bit too about the supplies and how typically they're ordered and what you do? Like some advice to people who are, really deterred maybe from doing home dialysis because of the burdens that might place on you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can actually speak from both the HHD and PD's perspective as well. So for right now with HHD, I have the downstairs bathroom in my home, not the downstairs bathroom, the downstairs bedroom to my home. And I utilize PureFlow, so I make my own bicarb. I used to use the hanging bags, but I did switch over to using PureFlow once I was at home more. And basically all of my supplies fit in the closet in that bedroom. And so I just have my room set up. I have a little love seat and a recliner in there, because sometimes my husband, we sit in there, we watch movies, or the grandkids are in there, so I have to have extra seating. But the supply burden for HHD, if you're doing PureFlow, which when you're making your own bicarb, is not as significant as it is if you are using the hanging bags. If you're using the hanging bags, you're going to get a lot more supplies. And PD, same thing, a lot of supplies. My supply setup was a little different with PD because you're dialyzing 7 nights a week, so you're going to use more supplies. And the take off and put all the things you need just to do the treatment safely and effectively. So I had literally a shelf with supplies on it as well. And then I just have a little side table that keeps all the things that are near me that I can get very quickly if I need it, like dialysis caps or syringes or something like that. But I try, even my husband, he's here, but because I do my treatment so late, he's usually knocked out because he gets up for work early. So he's been advocating for me to treat earlier so he can be in there with me if need be the whole time. But typically I just tell him to go ahead, and he keeps his cell phone on, and I'll call him if I need him. But that was one of the things that I was so resistant to before going home, because of the supplies. I mean, even so much that I didn't want the truck coming in front of my house, everybody knowing what's going on over here. And so I had to get over that. And once you start thinking of it from a place that this is my life, this is my lifeline, I want to have a better quality life, I want to have a different quality life, I want to play with my grandkids, I want to do things that I don't have the energy for in traditional dialysis. And you start to figure out ways that you can make this work for you. And that's how I do. I have this one room, we call it the dialysis room, the grandkids call it the dialysis room, and we know that's what's in there, and we just keep on moving.
That's great. That's really good advice to give people.
If I could say something real quick too.
Sure.
When you're reviewing home dialysis and you're reviewing dialysis, you're going to get thrown a whole bunch of horror stories. And I like to compare the horror stories to Yelp reviews. Okay, when you get on and you review in a restaurant, you only see the negative reviews. For every negative comment, I can give you hundreds of success stories. So dig deeper. And like I said, for that one bad story, I can show you 25, 30, 100 Christinas that are thriving.
Infections are going to happen at home. It's just natural. They're going to happen in center as well. But when you hear someone tell you some horrible infection story, ask them if they were following what their nurses were saying, if they were following the steps, if they started skipping steps, because we have a rule. If we start skipping steps, I go back in center because my life is more important than that.
Exactly. In other words, don't dwell on the negative. Look for the positive.
Yes, and your dialysis is going to be as good as you make it. You put the work in and learn how to do it properly. Do some research, and you'll do great.
And I have another question here too that I thought that people might be concerned about too. People who are doing home dialysis, they're afraid of, like, my gosh, what do I do if there's an emergency? Or if my equipment fails, say I'm not traveling around somewhere and my equipment fails, what do I do? What resources or help or insight can you offer to all those listening here with regards to if an emergency comes up, or the type of emergency that would it be, whether it be equipment or something with you personally? How do you plan for that? How do you deal with it?
Well,
go ahead, Bob.
I like to joke. I joke a lot. And one of my jokes is every time I come close to killing Christina, I learned a very important lesson. So, but
We learned very quickly that if there is an emergency, clamp those lines and be done.
yeah, and that's what I tell care partners. You can be as involved or uninvolved as you want. And if your job is just to clamp those lines and call 911, then that's all it is. And we all have emergencies. Just this week, our pure flow went out. So I had to call, I had to get it replaced. And I actually did a 15-minute video because I wanted to show the raw video of how I take this out, put it back in, ship it back, and actually show how we do this step by step.
And I think something that amazed us is these companies that make these machines, they have really invested in their customer service. We really never felt like we were alone. And I'll have you know, there was a period of time where we were on first name basis with those customer service employees, and they knew us when we called because we'd call them and ask them questions and pick their brain. And they are so intelligent and ready for your call.
And at the beginning, it is a lot. It is a lot. You're absorbing a lot. You're going to have alarms. You're going to have breakdown moments. You're going to have stress. But it gets to the point where it becomes, like I said, modified normal. I cannot remember an alarm that we had that I didn't have to adjust for more than a minute and go back to sleep. So it's amazing how quick
You get used to it.
it becomes our life.
Is that something too that as part of your training for doing home dialysis, no matter what mode you choose, that they train you effectively on what to do in the event of an emergency?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
you will not go home unless you know what you're doing. And if you don't feel comfortable going home, let them know you're not comfortable yet.
Yeah, and with certain machines, there's steps that it walks you through every single thing. So if you want to take some of this too, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. April, can you chime in on what we've been talking about here as far as the support and so forth having to do in the event of an emergency and where you go, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so they teach you the basic things that can happen in emergency, your blood pressure dropping, your needle becoming dislodged. Those are two of probably the main biggest healthcare emergencies. But if you have a care partner, you already have that cadence set out. So they're either in there with you or very close to you, where they can get to you quickly if you call out. They have an on-call nurse. Each home program has an on-call nurse that if you have questions off that are non-emergent, if you have an emergency, you call 911. And then, as Christina said, you clip and go. And it's just the same thing that you would do in an emergency in an in-center. They teach us to disconnect and go if in an emergency. We're not returning blood. We're not doing all those things. And then next stage support is really good. It's 24 hours because they know people are all over the world dialyzing. And so a call, they expect calls at any time of the day and night for any technical issues. I've had to call for certain alarms I just couldn't clear, and they would help me clear it on, and we would go through our business. If I had an issue with my pure flow system, it gets replaced and shipped right back out. The machine gets replaced and shipped right back out. And the beauty of it is that you're a little bit more hemodynamically stable when you're on home hemo. So it's not going to hurt you to miss a treatment. So it's not detrimental if you was like, oh, I was just so scheduled to treat today, and you don't get to treat today for whatever reason, a machine malfunction, and you have to wait till the next day to treat because you're a little bit more hemodynamically stable than a patient in center would be because you're getting the more frequent dialysis.
That's great feedback on there. I know myself, my son did the home dialysis, and I remember those alarms going off, and I reused the next stage machine. And you are absolutely correct about the support that you find in those people. It's almost, when you're talking with them, it's as if they're in the room with you. Push this button, do that. Like they're like standing over your shoulder. No, that's not right. They're on the other end of the phone. But yes, I agree totally with what you had to say there. Thank you so much.
And stay calm. If anything does occur, stay calm, because if you get rattled, or if your caregiver gets rattled, you're going to get rattled. If you get rattled, your caregiver is going to get rattled. So try to stay calm and already have contingency plans in place. Like I have probably 3 flashlights in my dialysis room, so I can get to them, because We have power outages when we have bad storms. And even if I'm here alone, if my husband is out traveling for work, I still need to be able to see, to disconnect myself, to walk out and flip the breaker in the garage. So it's just things like that that you just need to have plans for, just in case.
I see. Thank you.
And I like that too. She said, stay calm. Because at the beginning, and every clinic's a little bit different, but you have like usually about 3 minutes to fix whatever the problem is. Or
And
you
3 minutes goes
stop.
so quick in the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning, 3 minutes, something like that. But now I kind of joke that I can almost put my feet up, go make a sandwich, come back, fix the alarm, because it gives you every resource we need. And like on the iPad, well, if we do have a problem, we can call customer service and they can see exactly what's going on right at that moment.
That's one of the coolest things. And we're next stage as well, but with their iPad, you can literally turn it so they can see what's going on your machine. So you are not doing this alone, guys.
That's wonderful. And we've come pretty much close to the end of our discussion here. So what I would like to do is I would like you both, if you could possibly put your contact information in the chat so that if people wanted to reach out to you and find out more about your activities and things you do and need more information, that they're able to do that. And I'm going to put mine in as well. And I'd also like right now is if you could leave us with some final comments and words of wisdom, so to speak, regarding home dialysis. April, could you go first and take it over here and see and close this out for us for you?
Yes. I would just say if home dialysis is something that you have been thinking about and you're just kind of on the fence, there's no harm in trying, because if you're on in-center, you already have an access. You're going to use that same access. The only difference would be if you decided you wanted to try PD first, and so you need to have the PD catheter placed. But some of your issues and your anxiety in going into the dialysis clinics, some of the non-adherence with your modality, going into the dialysis clinics, a lot of that in a lot of people is no longer once they're at home, because when you are a home dialysis patient, you regain your control, you regain your time back, you regain a lot of your diet back, your fluid restriction back. Like, I don't think about what I drink every day. I don't have any urine function, and I still do not have to pull more than 1 kilo. And that's if I take off 2 days. They allow me to take off 2 days, no more than 2 days. But your time freedom and not being tied to someone else's schedule, not being tied to a facility that's short-staffed and they can't get to you right away, or your transportation can't get you back and forth in a timely manner. And just being able to feel better. That is the main benefit outside of your time freedom, is just how much you feel better.
Thank you so much, April. I appreciate that. And Michael, very quickly, because we're sort of on time constraints here, what can you add to close out our session today?
One of the biggest things I tell people, because I get a lot of messages from patients and care partners saying, hey, how can I convince my partner to go home? And one of the biggest things is I tell them to put our podcast on in the background. So episode 1 is a story, and it's just, you can find it by hashtag Blind Chick Living. You can find it on anything, but put that first one on, and it's amazing. Once you plant that seed, it's amazing what can come from that. And then I loved what April said of give it a try, because what's the worst that can happen? You end up right back in center where you are.
Yeah, and I totally, I went home for probably like 5 reasons. Like, I didn't want to go out in the snow. I wanted to be convenient. I wanted to be close to my kids. I got about 100 perks out of this. And honestly, I got things going on I didn't think would ever happen to me, because I have gotten so much stronger. So literally invest the time in yourself, because you're worth it.
Great. Thank you very much to our panel today and for all your contributions that you make. I really appreciate it. I think that this was a wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobbie, for conducting this wonderful panel. And thank you, Michael and April and LJ who just left because she had prior commitments. Thank you for being with us today. We'll move on to the next session. Let me, the last, but definitely the most important session that we have is all the resources that one would need and to look out for. That will be given by Bobbie. Let me give a brief introduction about Bobbie's advocacy. Bobbie is the Pennsylvania ambassador for the American Association of Kidney Patients. She's active with the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute as the Pennsylvania ambassador and is active with National Quality Forum in Washington.